The Romans dreamed about it. The mob almost stopped it, and now, against all odds and basic budgeting, Italy's actually doing it. It's getting a bridge. It's bold, it's expensive, and it might just change Italy forever. How? Keep watching and find out. On August 6th, 2025, the Italian government approved a plan to build the world's longest suspension bridge, and I mean long. The current record holder in Turkey, just over 6,600 feet. Cute. Italy's will be almost double that, 12,000 feet. It'll make Turkey's look like a bath toy. It's less a bridge and more a flex of national ego. Rome says it'll boost the economy, maybe even unite the country. Sure, this is the same country that still argues over whose region makes the real pizza. But why make such a monster? 3 words: location, location, location. The same spot that's been murdering bridge dreams since before Italy was, well, Italy. Generals, emperors, and engineers have all looked at it and gone, yeah, maybe not. See that stretch of water? The one that separates Sicily from the mainland? That's the Strait of Messina. It's 2 miles at its narrowest point. The widest, 3.2 miles, at the city of Messina. Not huge, but it's enough. The Romans thought about building one. Sicily was ground zero for the First Punic War. They wanted a bridge strong enough for elephants. Wild animals, sure, but still lighter than a soccer mom's SUV. The plan? Tie thousands of barrels together, throw some platforms on top, march an army across. What could possibly go wrong? Historians doubt it ever happened, not just because of the elephants, but because it's hard to conquer nature when your bridge wobbles like jello. The next plan? A bridge made of boats. That one was courtesy of Consul Metellus, who apparently thought naval traffic was just a suggestion. The idea didn't last long. A floating bridge isn't exactly permanent, especially when it's sitting on one of the busiest shipping lanes in the Mediterranean. More boats ran north to south through the strait than east to west across it. So yeah, not ideal when your bridge is basically a floating roadblock. A sea block? Wait, barrier. Let's go with barrier. A lot of people dreamed of a bridge after this. Meanwhile, I dream of a successful YouTube career. Anyway, Charlemagne thought about it. The Norman conquerors, too. Everyone had ideas. No one had results. Even in the 1870s, the brand new Kingdom of Italy gave it a shot, and like most government projects, it never made it past the drawing board. So what's going on? It's just a bridge, right? These waters aren't just rough. They're legendary, literally. They've been sinking dreams and ships for almost 3,000 years. Take a look at this NASA satellite photo. See that town up north in Calabria? That's Scylla. Yeah, named after that Scylla. For any who missed Greek Mythology 101, that's a 6-headed sea monster from Homer's Odyssey, right across from the Charybdis. That's the mythic whirlpool that could swallow entire ships. This is the neighborhood where sailors went to die, but, you know, poetically. But here's the thing. This isn't just the stuff of myth. Okay, Scylla might be, but Charybdis? That's a real deal. The Strait of Messina is a party central for whirlpools and vortexes. Why? Start to the south, in the Ionian Sea. It's the slice of the Mediterranean wedged between Greece's west coast and Italy's southern tip. The main current through the Strait of Messina goes north, but there's a second one. Smaller, meaner. The kind that likes to sneak in and take a few swings, almost literally. North of Sicily sits the Tyrrhenian Sea. It's tucked between Italy's west coast and the islands of Corsica, Sardinia, and Sicily. It sends its own current through the strait, one that somehow manages to get on with the other. The two have struck a surprisingly stable truce, almost civil. You'd think they were human if humans were ever that reasonable. In the real strait, the two currents take turns every 6 hours, like roommates on a passive-aggressive cleaning schedule. Their back and forth creates chaos unlike anywhere else in the Mediterranean, which, by comparison, is basically a giant, salty bathtub. Most of it barely moves, with tides under 11.8 inches. Why? Because the Mediterranean is kind of its own little world. Its only doorway to the Atlantic is the 8.1-mile Strait of Gibraltar. It's a glorified bouncer that keeps the wild ocean outside. A convenient barrier for sailors who prefer their water slightly less murderous. But the Strait of Messina is an outlier, a troublemaker. The narrow gap between the Tyrrhenian and Ionian basins squeezes the water like a pinched hose. Only this hose fights back. The currents roar, churn, and twist, and that's just the surface. The real story? That's hiding underneath. Beneath the waves, the Strait of Messina looks like an upside-down mountain. That's at the Ganziri Punta Pezzo Junction, a place that sounds like gelato. But the slopes that get to that point are far from even. To the north, in the Tyrrhenian Sea, the seafloor eases down until it hits about 1.2 miles deep at the island of Stromboli. Then, things get nasty. Just a few kilometers beyond the junction, the seafloor drops fast, 1,600 feet. Then another 6,600-foot deep stretch at the junction between Capo Taormina and Capo d'Armi. It's not a seabed, it's a roller coaster for fish. That uneven depth forms the strait's double funnel. When the Tyrrhenian Sea hits high tide, the Ionian dips low. Then they switch, like two oceans in a custody battle over the seafloor. But wait, there's more. Of course there is. 3 more things that make this place so unstable it's like the Mediterranean's midlife crisis. First off, temperature. The Tyrrhenian stays toasty thanks to its enclosed shape. Meanwhile, the Ionian stays cooler and moodier. And that's not their only difference, not by a long shot. The Tyrrhenian might win on warmth, but the Ionian? It's got bite, saltier and denser than the Tyrrhenian. The result? 2 seas that don't get along. One's mild, the other's moody. Classic Mediterranean sibling rivalry. Together, these conditions produce tidal currents that can reach speeds of up to 5.7 miles an hour. Not much on land, but underwater? Different story. When the Ionian current takes charge, cold water rises from below. Upswelling, perfect for fish, a nightmare for anyone trying to build something that doesn't immediately collapse. When the Tyrrhenian current takes point, the water flows south, but it's warmer, lighter. It skims the surface like it's too good to mix, a bit like me at parties. Below 100 feet though, the Ionian waters are still running the show. Even the sea has a hierarchy problem. This crossroads of clashing currents creates whirlpools and vortexes. That's the same chaos Homer blamed on the sea monster Charybdis. Myth? Sure, but the instability? Very real. You can see it from space. Satellite images show the waves twisting like the sea's having an identity crisis. Down on Earth, you'll find beaches littered with seaweed, torn from the seafloor and tossed ashore by the violent tides. Feeling brave? The strait is also a great fishing spot. The tides force deep water fish to the surface. Get a boat, park it in the strait, and brace yourself for rough conditions. You might be able to catch a lot of fish as a reward. It's a hotspot for swordfish, tuna, Atlantic sari, albacore, and others. But more on the wildlife later. This is Map Pack, not the fishing channel. Oh, and if you like these geography deep dives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, my parents will find out that YouTube wasn't a phase. So, tides and currents are just the first headache for engineers, but not the only one. Poseidon didn't make Odysseus' life miserable just because he ruled the sea. He was also the god of earthquakes, and this region? He's been busy. The Strait of Messina parked itself along a series of fault lines. There's the appropriately named Messina Strait Fault, points for honesty, 0 for creativity. Then there's the Capo Peloro Fault, the Tindari Fault, all part of the Calabrian Arc. But the real show is underneath. This is where the Eurasian and African plates meet. And like any tense relationship, they don't do stable. Earthquakes are a constant companion here. Maybe not as dramatic as Charybdis' whirlpools, but they'll still ruin your day. In December of 1908, a 7.5 magnitude quake struck beneath the strait. It obliterated Messina and Reggio Calabria. Around 100,000 people died. One of the deadliest earthquakes in history, and not a one-off either. Similar quakes rocked the region over the years. The Earth here doesn't just move, it holds grudges. The strait gets regular reminders of how unstable it is. Mini quakes of magnitude 4.7 hit on the regular. In 1952, 61, 75, and 85. Things have been quiet since then, which, in geological terms, is never good. And there's another source of tectonic stress in the region. Travel 50 miles southwest. See that pointy thing with smoke coming out of it? It's the Lady of the Rings, Mount Etna. Eruption count? At least 186 times since 1500 BC. That's one every 19 years. But don't think it works on a schedule. In 2011, it erupted 11 times in 3 weeks. The ultimate look at me. Surprisingly, Etna's eruptions aren't all bad, if you ignore the lava and stuff. The volcanic soil they leave behind is ridiculously fertile. Like nature's version of a sorry I set your home on fire gift basket. It's why about 20% of Sicily's population lives near Etna. They know where it's safe, mostly. Less than 100 people actually live within 3 miles of the crater. Sometimes, Etna skips the amateur dramatics. In 1669, it blew so violently that lava reached the city walls of Catania, 25 miles away. 5 weeks after it started, when Etna acts up, it really commits. It's not enough to reach the Strait of Messina. So, good news, bridge engineers won't have to design around molten lava. Bad news, it's still sitting next to one of Europe's most active volcanoes. The constant rumbling adds to the tectonic stress. In 2018, a 4.9 quake hit Etna's eastern flank. 2 centuries earlier, it was a 6.2. It erupted twice in 2025 alone. One blast grounded flights out of Catania Airport because of ash clouds. Flying through volcanic ash is bad enough. Driving through it? Good luck with that insurance claim. Rough currents, angry mountains spewing ash clouds, and constant earthquakes don't just complicate things, they inflate the price tag. A lot. Any bridge over the Strait of Messina would live in a permanent state of stress. I know the feeling. That means no shortcuts, no budget creativity. It has to handle bending, shear, and axial forces all at once. Pressure from above, from below, from the sides. Basically, every direction except a helpful one. Normally, suspension bridge piers follow a simple rule: an inch of diameter for every foot of span. So a 20-foot foundation means roughly a 20-inch pier. Easy math. But the Strait of Messina doesn't do easy, remember? The currents here churn the seabed, stripping away anything that isn't overbuilt. It's nature's way of saying, try me. And since the strait is narrow, there's also the risk of ships getting a little too friendly with the structure. Nobody wants a repeat of Baltimore in March of 2024. That's when a cargo ship turned the Francis Scott Key Bridge into a very expensive sightseeing trip. Even the wind speeds need a line item. Everything here is out to test your engineering degree. Wind gusts in the Strait of Messina usually top out around 11 miles an hour. Not bad, but engineers can't plan for usually. 20 years ago, the record spikes hit 89 miles an hour. That's not a gust. That's your patio furniture moving to a different state. Engineers are going big, though. They're planning for 181 miles an hour, 4 times stronger, Category 5. If your bridge can survive that and earthquakes, it's not civil engineering anymore. That's divine intervention. Technically, winds that strong only show up once every 2,000 years, which sounds fine until you remember Italy's luck. So they're borrowing from jet design. A wing-shaped deck with openings to let wind slip through. Part bridge, part airplane, and fully confident that absolutely nothing will go wrong. Well, what about the earthquakes? Buildings here are designed to survive a quake that hits once every 500 years, but that's not good enough for the bridge. Not for something this costly, risky, and politically controversial. If it ever goes down, it'll take a few careers with it. And there's another obstacle. The port of Messina alone moves nearly 8 million tons of cargo and 9.5 million passengers a year. It's less a port, more a conveyor belt with scenic views. Cruise ships love it too. About 340,000 passengers sail through annually, all with sunscreen, sandals, and the ability to ruin an engineer's day. These things are floating skyscrapers. Some loom 200 feet above the waterline. So any bridge here, it has to clear that. The deck needs to sit at least 203 feet up, plus another 16 feet of just in case, which is not something you ever want engineers to say about the thing keeping your car out of the ocean. So the foundations will have to go deep. The materials will need to last longer than most Italian governments. The towers need to be rigid enough to take the pounding. The rest of the bridge has to flex and disperse the force. Makes you think, just buy a ferry. But it can be done easily. Famous last words. It's not like the technology wasn't there. Engineers knew it could be done as early as the 1900s. A suspension bridge, maybe even a tunnel. The challenge wasn't science, it was everything else. So, no big deal. Europe wasn't exactly having a calm century, so the idea sat on ice until 1953. Then, the first practical bridge design finally appeared. It came from David B. Steinman. That's the guy who built Michigan's Mackinac Bridge. He looked at the strait and thought, sure, that seems manageable. His plan called for foundations sunk 390 feet into the seafloor, a central span of 5,000 feet. From end to end, the bridge would stretch over 9,800 feet, the longest in the world. Well, at least until someone with more money and less sense showed up. But it never happened. The bridge would have needed 12,000 workers. It would have cost hundreds of billions of lira, which back then was monopoly money with nicer printing. Post-World War II Italy was still rebuilding from actual rubble. Asking for a mega project like this was optimistic. Then came the 1960s. It was a golden age of optimism and terrible execution. In 1965, the government proposed a bridge. And if that sounds familiar, it should. They spent about $1.3 billion on feasibility studies. The result? Paperwork and headaches. One of the ideas, a submersible bridge, or one on floating pontoons that could swivel to let ships pass. Bold, ridiculous, and predictably abandoned. Then came the 1970s. More feasibility studies, fewer bridges. Turns out, the real bridge was the paperwork we made along the way. But as the 20th century wound down, two big things actually happened. In 1981, the Italian government created the Messina Strait Company. Its one job, design and build a bridge. Not a suggestion, a law. Nothing says we mean it, like even more paperwork. Then came the 1990s, and for once, the feasibility studies led to something feasible. The company had a plan, a real one, concrete even. But this is Italy, so naturally, everything stalled for a decade. Until suddenly, it didn't. For a brief moment, it actually looked like the ball was rolling. Fast. Which in Italy is generally the point where someone forgets to build the goal. In 2005, the government of Silvio Berlusconi pulled the trigger. A construction contract went to Salini Impregilo, now the epically named We Build Company. In 2006, Impregilo and the Messina Strait Company made it official. Not romantically, but close. Salini Impregilo took the lead with a 45% stake. Joining them, partners from Spain, Japan, Denmark, and Canada. Construction was supposed to start later that year. And then it stopped. Not because of engineering problems, not because of earthquakes or wind, but because of something far more destructive: politics. Again, Italy's most consistent natural disaster. Berlusconi, for all his power, started taking hits, big ones. He was voted out of office. 6 months later, Parliament killed the bridge. After decades of studies and billions spent, they still weren't convinced it was feasible. Which is impressive, given that feasibility was literally in the job description. Officially, they blamed earthquake risk. Unofficially, it was everything else. The cost, the debt, the economy, and that lingering fear of giving the Mafia a new side hustle. After all, corruption in Italy doesn't retire. It just switches families. To Calabria's 'Ndrangheta. By the late 2000s, organized crime made up between 7 and 9% of Italy's GDP. That's not a criminal underworld, that's a business model. Unfortunately for the bridge, organized crime in Italy doesn't travel well. It's a southern specialty. So MPs assumed that at least some of the cash flowing through Sicily and Calabria would end up in the hands of the mob. It wasn't paranoia, just experience talking, pretty loudly. Every decade, someone proposed it. Millions were spent studying it, and then, surprise, something happened and there was no bridge. By the early 2000s, Italy had built more feasibility reports than actual bridges. At this point, they could have built a bridge out of the reports themselves. Sure, the government put on a brave face. At first, Berlusconi's bridge seemed financial meltdown proof. In 2009, he pledged 1.3 billion euros towards it. Work even began, rerouting a railway at Cancellations. The bridge would be done by 2016, or so he said. But reality doesn't do optimism, and it was about to hit Italy and Berlusconi hard. The financial crisis became Europe's debt meltdown. Greece went first. Italy followed. Berlusconi, drowning in scandal and bad math, resigned in 2011. His successor, Mario Monti, killed the project in 2013. 2 months later, the Strait of Messina Company was liquidated. After decades of promises, the only thing ever built was disappointment. And it stayed that way for 10 years. There's an Italian saying, "I'll do it when the bridge over the Strait of Messina is finished." Makes sense, huh? Hold up, let's talk about the Strait of Messina Company again. 10 years? That's a long time for liquidation. Most companies get buried faster. There was another round of political chaos and the usual "maybe we'll build it" talk. Then Giorgia Meloni took office in September of 2022. And honestly, her government's been surprisingly stable, by Italian standards anyway. She issued a decree to revive and remodel the project. 2 months later, a new scientific committee was formed, and by June, the company's liquidation status was officially revoked. It's like the last 20 years never happened. In 2024, people expected it to stall again. It didn't. Italy actually followed through, which frankly feels unnatural. Approval came on August 6th, 2025. The bridge will link Torre Faro in Sicily with Villa San Giovanni in the mainland. 2 decks, 6 lanes, double-track rail in both directions, multitasking disguised as a bridge. When it's done, it'll handle up to 200 trains a day and 140,000 vehicles. The project's expected to pump about 3 billion euros into the national GDP, most of it in the south. The part of Italy the 21st century still hasn't fully checked in on. How bad is it? Well, look at the numbers. Northern Italy has 46% of the population. It makes up 60% of the GDP. 70% of working-age people there have jobs. In the south, it's 50%. Half the people, half the opportunity. And still waiting for the other half of the country to remember they exist. Let's zoom in. Lombardy versus Calabria. In 2023, Lombardy's GDP per capita was 127% of the EU average. Talk about overachieving. Calabria's 56%. Lombardy's economy was more than 12 times bigger. Same country, different wallets. The bridge won't fix that, not even close, but it's a start. A small step in a much larger plan, and in the short term, it's a badly needed shot in the arm for the South. Somewhere between 100 and 120,000 people will work on it in one way or another. That's a lot of hard hats. To calm the critics, WeBuild, still a great name, says most of these jobs will go to locals, which would be great news, assuming half of them aren't just doing the paperwork. WeBuild won't be doing this alone, though. Japan's IHI Corporation is in the mix. Smart choice. They've built things that actually stay up. One of theirs, the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge. It links Kobe to Awaji Island. It used to be the longest suspension bridge in the world until Turkey showed up and went bigger. Remember, it's not how big the bridge is, it's what you do with it, or something like that. The real reason they're here? Survival. Japan lives on the Ring of Fire, home to 90% of the world's earthquakes. Kobe alone shakes 38 times a year. Most are small, and some aren't. A magnitude 4 every year, a magnitude 6 every couple of decades. If you want a bridge that lasts, call in the guys who treat earthquakes like a performance review. On January 17th, 1995, the Great Hanshin earthquake hit. Magnitude 6.9, 5,000 dead. Most of them in Kobe. And the bridge? Still standing. Okay, it was under construction at the time, but it barely flinched. Why? Because the engineers knew exactly what they were building, and they built for it. Anti-seismic design, earthquake-resistant everything, no Wi-Fi though. Come on, Japan, priorities. So yeah, having Japan's IHI on board adds serious credibility. The whole "it'll fall down in the first quake" argument loses a bit of weight when the Japanese show up with blueprints and a straight face. The bridge will also fix a more literal problem: connectivity. Right now, the only way to get vehicles across the strait is by ferry. About 10 million people ride those ferries every year. The schedule? Every 20 to 40 minutes. 366 times a year. Yeah, even on leap years. The trip takes 100 minutes, just to cross a few kilometers of water, for $60. The bridge? 10 minutes, flat. That's speed running the strait. How about the trains? They'll save about 2.5 hours. That's according to Italy's transport minister Matteo Salvini, a longtime bridge fanboy. Which makes sense. He's a politician. He loves anything that sounds like progress. Actual progress? Less so. There is another perk to the bridge. Rome's classifying the spending as defense-related. I tried that with this channel and the IRS. didn't go well, but for Italy, it helps boost defense spending to 5% of GDP, which would make NATO very happy. But the bridge has plenty of critics, mostly the kind who can count. It's going to cost around 13.5 billion euros, about $15.5 billion. The money's set aside, and Webuild, IHI, and the rest are already warming up their bank accounts. Turkey's 1915 Kanakkale Bridge cost about 2.5 billion euros, at least according to Erdogan. So a pinch of salt and all that. But Italy's bridge will still be a financial heavyweight. Why? Length, complexity, and a whole lot of inconvenient geography. Oh, and an extra 6.75 billion euros for connecting roads and the rails. The bridge isn't even on the main route between Messina and Villa San Giovanni. It's 5 miles north. So congratulations, Italy. You're not just building a bridge, you're building to get to the bridge. And then there are the other expenses, the kind that has nothing to do with concrete or cables. The money's been approved, but that doesn't mean you get a shiny bridge. What's the holdup this time? Take your pick. Bureaucracy, politics, Italy being Italy. Protesters took to the streets. The bridge was too big. The Mafia would see it as a payday. The government said no. No chance. Keeping the mob out is a top priority, which sounds great until you remember this is Italy. The mob has better attendance at public works projects than the engineers. What about the 500 families that would be displaced? Eminent domain. Always a crowd pleaser, expensive, slow, and guaranteed lawsuits. And then another obstacle. The hits keep coming. Environmental impact, anyone? The kind of phrase that makes every builder break into a cold sweat. Remember that upwelling I mentioned earlier? It's an all-you-can-eat buffet for marine life. Cold water rises, brings nutrients, and boom, instant fish party. The strait's full of them, feeding on the plant life. And with fish come the usual freeloaders: seals, dolphins, whales. There's even sharks, and not just the friendly ones, the eating human kind, great whites. Critically endangered, just like anyone stupid enough to get in their way. The bridge kind of wrecks their backyard. And has anyone thought about the birds? Environmental groups have. They've already filed a complaint with the EU. They're worried the bridge could mess with migrating birds, and they're not wrong. About 4.3 million birds fly over the Strait of Messina every year. Between 17 and 46% could end up colliding with the bridge, which sounds like a they problem. 300 species are at risk: harriers, eagles, falcons, and the endangered Egyptian vulture. It's a VIP list of things you really don't want flying into your infrastructure. The bridge still needs approval from Italy's Court of Audit before a single shovel hits dirt. And even then, expect more lawsuits. Because this is Italy, and nothing breaks ground unless it's buried in paperwork first. The government's confident it'll clear the environmental hurdles. If not, I'm sure the Mafia would be willing to help. For Rome, the payoff's worth the wait. They're playing the long game. Cargo ships docking in Sicily, unloading their goods, heading north by high-speed rail, not just to Italy, but all the way through Europe. The bridge would be the missing link, the linchpin connecting Sicily to the EU market through the Berlin-Palermo corridor, from ferry delays to freight dreams. Or, until someone realizes half the cargo's still stuck in customs. And there's more. Sicily is prime real estate. The Greeks, Carthaginians, Romans, Arabs, Normans, everyone wanted a piece. Sunshine, good food. Oh, and it's the gateway between Europe and Africa. Africa's population, 1.4 billion now, 2.5 billion by 2050. 40% of the planet by 2100. That's a lot of people and a lot of demand. Europe sees opportunity, build connections, move goods, make money. The bridge fits right in. There's already the Gibraltar rail tunnel planted between Spain and Morocco, and the EU's €150 billion Global Gateway Initiative. That's building infrastructure across Africa, connecting the continent to the world. There's projects like the Lobito Corridor, an 1,100-mile rail line through Angola, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Italy's trying to get ahead of the curve with the Strait of Messina Bridge. The plan turns southern Italy back into what it's always been, a very scenic roundabout between rich Europe and a rising Africa. And if they beat Spain's tunnel, that's a bonus. If there's one thing Europe loves, it's passive-aggressive infrastructure competitions. So maybe when the Strait of Messina is done, won't be a joke much longer. Maybe. Everything's lined up. Webuild and IHI are locked in, the money's there, and the timing? Suspiciously political. Elections hit in 2027, expert construction to start early, and hopefully before anyone can cancel it. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. Really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on Map Pack.